Hi chocolate friends, Carla here with Opening Chocolate. Today I am talking about a Canadian chocolate maker, Black Jaguar Chocolate. This one has a bit of a complicated history. It was a little difficult to do research on them, but I'll try and present to you what I have found. Now, as you can see, they're winning awards for their chocolate. So, well, let's talk about all of that. So, Black Jaguar Chocolate, its start date is murky because of reasons we'll get into. So, in this iteration, Black Jaguar Chocolate started around 2020, 2021-ish, mid-pandemic, by Emilie, Lacerte and Scott Patterson. They are on Vancouver Island, I believe more specifically Cortes Island. There's a whole bunch of little Gulf islands that are around in there if you want to look at a map. That is on the west coast of Canada. So neither one of them really has a culinary background. Emilie has a background in media and television, and she was for a time based in Montreal but traveled all around to remote locations. And Scott is a professional gardener specializing in food producing organic gardens. So Emilie and Scott met in Nicaragua during a 7-year period of traveling. They first encountered cacao when they were filming a documentary in the Bolivian Amazon basin. And they were there to plant cacao seedlings with local families. So that was their introduction into the cacao tree, the cacao pod, all of that. While there, they were also introduced by one of the local families, Don Benjamin. He introduced them to a fermented cacao pulp drink, which is something that a lot of people in North America have yet to be exposed to. So that was their introduction to all of that, and they had their first bean to bar chocolate when they were meeting with an ethnobotanist friend in Bogota, Colombia. He introduced them to this ethnobotanist is a specialist in cacao, and he introduced them to a variety of drinking chocolates and lots of microbatch chocolates. So they really got a nice introduction to the bean to bar world at that point. Their friend then gave them a hand crank cacao cracker. So after you have roasted the beans, you need to crack them into nibs, and that's what he gave them and said, take this back to Nicaragua with you and do something with it. And so they did. They, at the time, were permanent residents in Nicaragua. Their daughter was born in Nicaragua. They got back to Nicaragua and started looking around for cacao beans. Now, of course, there's no shortage of great cacao beans in Nicaragua. And they started importing equipment for small equipment for microbatch chocolate making. They eventually came across Engelmann fine cacao, and if you are in the craft chocolate world, you are familiar with Engelmann cacao. His cacao is really good, really great for chocolate making, and that is what they used then, and that is what they currently use today. So they started a chocolate shop in what is the name of the town? San Juan. Why can't I remember? San Juan del Sur, I think it is. It's a surfing town in Nicaragua, and it was under the name of Oro Chocolates. And they were doing well. They were getting into hotels and selling their locally made chocolate. And they even won an International Chocolate Award. So in 2020, Patterson and another friend of his packed up 3 months. Yeah, here's where it gets really intense. So they worked for 3 months to make chocolate to go attend Chocoa in Amsterdam. So there's two really influential chocolate festivals in the craft chocolate world. Chocoa is one of them, and the Northwest Chocolate Festival is the other one. So Chocoa usually occurs sometime around February, March in the spring in Amsterdam, and this is where they were going. So they had suitcases full of chocolate that they had worked on for 3 months. They traveled across a land crossing from Nicaragua to Costa Rica, and once they got into Costa Rica, the chocolate was tested. All right, so here's what you need to know about that. So 2 things. A lot of times chocolate is used to cover up the scent of illegal drugs. The second thing you need to know, that tests used on food products to test the presence of cannabis, more specifically the chemical THC, which is the active psychotropic ingredient in cannabis marijuana, are very bad. They have a lot of false positives. If you're interested in knowing more about that, I'll post a couple of links down in the sources so that you can look up a little bit more about, but they are like oregano, thyme, peppermint, all these other things can set them off. And chocolate. Here's a research paper where they talk about, they're looking at some of the reasons why chocolate is particularly bad for this kind of testing. And so, unfortunately for them, they came through with these bags and bags of chocolate to go to Chocoa, and it was tested and it came back as a positive result for cannabis. Scott and his friend were detained. The chocolate was seized. They spent 3 months in jail in Costa Rica until the chocolate was more properly tested and it came back that there was no cannabis in the chocolate. They were released with an apology. So here's where things changed. So Oro chocolate from Nicaragua at that point ceased to exist. Scott and Emilie came back to Canada, where they're from, and started anew. As it's kind of a scary experience to have. So yeah, they started Jaguar Chocolate 2020, 2021-ish. How they got on my radar was in, I think it was 2022, their drinking chocolate won an award. Their Mayan traditional drinking chocolate won an award. So that's how I found out about them. And since then, they have been winning other awards, specifically for their dark milk chocolate. All right, so that is the journey of Emilie Lacerte and Scott Patterson. There's some references down below for the sources. You can look at the newspaper article for their arrest, and yeah, it's kind of a scary thing to happen as a chocolate maker. So let's talk about their chocolate. I had purchased their Mayan chocolate. If you go on my Instagram, you can see it. But I also have their 55% dark milk chocolate, which is one both at America's level and the world level. And I have their 77% heirloom preservation. So this bean is an HCP cacao. Both are from Ingemann. So I'm going to flip the camera around. We'll open them up and give them a try. So let's do that. All right, so here are the 2 bars that I have. Like I said, they get all their cacao from Ingemann Fine Cacao, which is a well-known provider in Nicaragua. All their cacao is still from Nicaragua. They import it into Canada. Let's see what else. So this beautiful drawing that they have on the front, isn't that gorgeous, of the jaguar? It was done by a close family friend from Nicaragua, Reina Rose Brown, who has studied a little bit of the ancient Mayan culture and knows about jaguars. The name itself comes from the fact that the presence of jaguars was like they were there when they were living in Nicaragua. There's a high population of jaguars in the bioreserve, which from where this cacao comes from, where the beans are grown. And a jaguar is also a central figure in cacao mythology and history. So that is where the choice of their name comes from. So let's take a look at the package here. I think I'm going to open this one first. So we've got, this is one of the beans that you can get from Ingemann. Dark milk, 55%. So in case you didn't know, a lot of milk chocolate has a very low percentage of cacao actually in it. Usually somewhere, if you're in Europe, 25%. If you're in the United States or Canada, closer probably to 15 or 10%. So not a lot of chocolate. So this is significantly more cacao than your average grocery store chocolate. Okay, so I see that this one is from the tasting note. From these tasting notes, I know that this is Ingemann's Opio. Yeah, a great brand to work with. They're not the only ones who work with it, but I guess they're doing something good if they're winning these awards. So here's the ingredients. We have cacao beans, cacao butter, cane sugar, and whole milk powder. So all of their ingredients are also organic. All right, let's open it up. Bean to bar on Vancouver Island. Oh, a nice little map shows you where Nicaragua is. A little bit about their history. And this Black Jaguar art is gorgeous. It's really, really nice. Let's see if I can open this without hurting the jaguar. Inside they've got some other drawings of the process of making bean to bar chocolate. So let's just set that aside and take a look at their chocolate. Looks nice, pretty standard mold. All right, let's give it. This is not a tempering issue. This is a travel issue. Okay, did you hear that? This is from being banged up. And that may be partially my fault. So listen to this nice snap. Good snap for a milk bar. What I'm going to do is I'm going to warm it up with my thumb to release the volatile compounds, see what I can smell, and then taste it, and we'll come back. All right, so I can see why this has won an award. It's a very nice chocolate forward dark milk chocolate bar. So here's the issue I have with it though. I am eating these a few months after I bought them, but I have no idea when it's produced because there's no best before date on this bar that I can locate. Let me just double check here. I do not see one. Let's see if there's one on the wrapper. I don't see one. So I don't know how long this bar is, let's say, call it aged, or how long the chocolate aged. These notes, these tasting notes on the back come straight from Ingemann. They are the tasting notes for the cacao, not necessarily for the chocolate. I personally do not get these tasting notes out of this chocolate, and that's fine. I mean, not everybody tastes the same thing. once a chocolate maker gets a hold of beans, they're not necessarily going to treat the beans the same way as like Ingemann when they're doing their test batches, or another chocolate maker who is using Ohio chocolate. So I wouldn't necessarily say they're all the same. Now, nice rich chocolate flavor, nice deep roasted chocolate flavor here. Nice chocolate aroma, a little bit of a kind of on the edge of burnt caramel note. Maybe coffee, but I wouldn't call it coffee. I don't get anything tannic at all in this. So tannic is not necessarily for me. I don't enjoy tannic. So if I saw that on a package, I wouldn't necessarily buy it. Some people do, if they're wine drinkers, or some people like that flavor. I do not get pronounced passion fruit, pineapple, or kiwi. I do, as it ends the melt, get a little bit of a tropical fruitiness in there. Like, it's not a red fruit, it's not a brown fruit, it's not a dried fruit. It's definitely leans to more a tropical fruit, pineapple kind of area, but it's very subtle at the end of the melt. So, yeah. That's that. So again, the lesson to learn from this is you're not always going to taste what the chocolate maker tastes. So even if they had not taken those directly from Ingemann, which is not necessarily a bad thing to do, but not everybody tastes the same thing. Not everybody tastes the same way. So it's all different. Beans treated in a different way will not always taste the same. So every time you have an Ohio bean, it may not taste the same way. Regardless, this is a nice bar. It's a nice dark milk chocolate bar. I can see why it's winning awards. And yeah, a great snap for milk, even with that extra cocoa butter added. So that's a really nice bar. I probably talked too long to open another bar on this video, but I know that I can tell just from looking at these tasting notes that they're using the Ingemann Chuno Classico beans. So again, nothing wrong with that, but make sure you're tasting your chocolate. See what you're tasting versus what the beans tasted like when they finished drying and fermenting them. So I look forward to tasting this bar in the future. Tasting notes are a weird thing. So let's flip the camera around. We tasted these two. I've tasted one of these bars. We'll flip the camera around and we'll finish up. All right. So these guys are winning awards. The Americas is coming up this fall. So you'll probably see this video in the fall. So I don't know if they'll have won more awards at that point. Like I said, I did try their Mayan traditional drinking chocolate. It was nice as well. Nice blend of spices. It was very subtle, well blended drinking chocolate, which also won an award. With regard to tasting notes, I don't put a lot of stock in tasting notes for many reasons. I could do a whole video on that. Chocolate changes over time. People have different tastes. Like the chocolate maker has a different set of taste buds and environmental exposure versus what my taste buds and my environmental exposure has been. And it's just a very complex thing. So use them as a guide. You may or may not taste them. If you like the chocolate, that's what counts. As a maker, as a consumer, that's what counts. Do you like the chocolate you're making and eating? So that's why I'm not too worried about tasting notes, but I did know exactly what cacao they were using from those tasting notes. So that is Black Jaguar cacao out of Vancouver Island in British Columbia, Canada. Give them a try. Let me know what you think. And that's it for this week. Thank you for watching. If you have any thing to contribute to the conversation, make sure to let me know down in the comments. I love getting comments and hearing back from you. And I hope you join me next time when we examine and taste all things that have to do with chocolate. We'll see you then.